I want a staff. Why? One, you're going to look at this and you're going to tell me this isn't the coolest thing you've ever seen? I mean, this is sick. I want to do this. And two, wizards. Need I say more? No. So, how do we get our greasy, grimy, slimy little hands on one of these things? Well, we really have two options. We can either buy one or we can make one. And seeing I have $2 and a piece of lint in my bank account, buying one is kind of out of the question. Plus, I feel like buying one is like, I'm not like formally trained in this form of like martial arts. So I feel like that'd be like a weird thing to buy. Like if I wanted like a walking stick, it would be better just to get like a trekking pole than one of these like bigger and heavy and so that leads it to making it. So how do we make one of these? That's a good question, and I don't know. But I do have wood and a thing that makes wood round. And what is a staff except for a round piece of wood? So let's get to making one. What was that? A staff form? Why do I have to fill out a form? I'm making it. Okay, whatever. Let's see. Fill out the form. Answers will be great. Why are answers graded on this? Okay. Let's see. Question 1. How long is it going to be? Well, according to TV and movies and media, seems like the length is about their height or so, or taller. So something within that range, I guess. Put that down. How thick is it going to be? Well, let's see. If we go off of this one Amazon listing and nothing else, looks like they're selling these between 1 inch and 1.75 inches in diameter. So, I don't know, 1.5? I think that's probably good. What type of wood is it going to be made out of? That's a good question, because I don't really know wood types. Like I have a bunch of wood. I don't know, couldn't tell you what most of it is. And even if I could, I don't really know the physical properties of it as to whether or not one thing would be good for this than the other. So I'm just gonna kind of pick whatever looks cool. We'll do that. Let's see. And how are we gonna mount it onto the lathe? That's another good question. See, the lathe that I have isn't very long. I think it's like 14 inches or something like that. So if we want it to be however tall, we'd have to cut up a bunch of sections, like somehow attach them all together. But yeah, I guess we'll just kind of cut up a bunch of sections then, and then I don't know, try to figure out how to attach them later on down the road. So yeah, okay. For this, I suppose, guess I'll, you can take that, I guess. So with that out of the way, let's start making it. So if we have to cut this into sections, how long are these sections going to be, right? So ideally we want to cut them as long as possible, so we don't have to make as many of these. We don't have to turn down like 17 pieces or something like that. So we want to make it as big as you can fit on the lathe. We'll have to make them like a little bit smaller for like the tail stock and stuff to like actually get it like clamped on and all that. But so if we're making these sections of arbitrary length, we could try to figure out like, if they're this long, how many would we want to get however height that we want. You could do like the math on that, but I'm not going to do the math on that. I'm not a nerd. So I'm just going to make a bunch. I'm just going to turn down a bunch of them and try to maybe like balance them on top of each other maybe, and then to try to see, you know, how many we need from there. For the wood, for the type of wood that I'm going to use, you know, like I said, I don't really know wood types, but I do have this cool red wood here. Maybe we can use that for like the middle. That might be cool. You know, again, I don't know what type of wood this is. So if anyone knows in the comments, let me know. I don't know if this is like exotic, but I would like to get more of this because it looks cool. So I also have like this like darker looking wood. Maybe that would be cool for like kind of in the middle, like at the ends of the middle section, and maybe at the very ends we could put ironwood, which is like the only type of wood that I really know off the top of my head. Future me here, actually. So I kind of messed up the cut on the ironwood, so it's smaller than the 1.5 that we were going to use. So instead, I decided to use some of this, whatever wood this is. It's like denser than the other ones, so I don't know. Plus, it's lighter, so I thought it would look kind of cool on the ends. But yeah, back to the video. It'd be like heavier on the ends. I don't know if that's good, bad, who knows. But yeah, it'd be cool to do that. So yeah, so if we decide on 1.5 inches in diameter, we can set the calipers to 1.5. Turn down this. I don't know if you've used the calipers before, but there's a little screw on the back of these calipers that will kind of like lock them in place, so they won't drift out, right? So turn that, you know, set them to 1.5. Turn that screw down, and I started turning them down. It wasn't until maybe the 8th or 9th piece that I realized with the calipers that the screw on the back wasn't turned down tight enough. So I made the first measurement already off. Immediately they drifted off. So not even like the first piece was like within 1.5. It was like kind of close at one end and then just kind of farther off at another end, and they were all wonky. But it's an easy fix, because you know it's easier to take stuff off of something than to put stuff onto something in this case. So you know, I could just like I have to turn down all the pieces again, which, you know, it sucks because it's 9 pieces, so I have to do that 9 more times. But now that I have practice getting them within a somewhat close tolerance, it's almost kind of a good thing. So we turned them all down again. You know, they're all within the 1.5 inch range, somewhere around there. Now the question is here, how? Because, you know, we have to stack them all on top of each other. So we need the ends to be pretty square, or you know, at like 90 degrees to the rest of the dowel pieces. How are we going to do that? That's a good question. I don't have like a drill press or anything, and because these like they aren't at like the maximum size, but they're still too long to really like clamp them onto the lathe, so then like to like drill it flat on the side. So I mean, I have a hand saw, but you know, I'm still like eyeballing it. I have a bandsaw, but that kind of likes to go like and cut wherever it kind of feels like cutting. So after thinking about how to square up these ends for longer than I would like to admit, I realized, I mean, I have this diamond bit for, you know, for the lathe. I can just use that to square it off. So I'm still eyeballing it, but at least it's better than the other options. Like I'm either going like making it like kind of a cone inwards, or like going like outwards, like have it rounded outwards. So as long as it's somewhat like coned in, it should be fine. So, cool, awesome. We got all the ends squared up, and everything. Now we need to figure out how to connect all of these pieces. I know wood glue is stronger than wood, but this is it's like a small amount of surface area here, and to have all of that supported off of like these ends may not work pretty well. Plus, this guy from the Skyrim video says that that's like weak. So
as far as I can tell, that is just glued to the side of the back of the chair, which is not going to create a lot of strength.
I don't know. He seems to know more than I do. So, being smart, I figured I could drill a hole in each ends, the little sticks, and then put a dowel in those ends, and then I can like clamp those all together. I put wood glue on that, clamp it together, and more surface area. You have more wood like connecting the two, and that should be good, right? Well, here's another thing. How do I make sure that when I'm drilling through these, that the hole is centered and going in like straight, like aligned with these dowels? I don't know the proper jig or whatever to like use, but the lathe from like clamping it does kind of mark the center of this. So I don't know. I'll just I'll try to eyeball it. Maybe it won't be too bad. I don't know. I tried it on some test pieces, and it seemed, well, it didn't really seem okay. When I put in the smaller dowel, it kind of was like on an angle and stuff. But I don't, fuck it, I guess. So I continued just to eyeball it on all of those and drill through on that, and the dowels were off. They were pretty on an angle for almost all of them, so they didn't really like go together seamlessly and tightly. A lot of gaps and stuff. But that's fine, right? We could just make the holes bigger, give it a little bit of wiggle room, and then just dump more wood glue in there, right? That'll work. Tried doing that. Clamping it together. Didn't really have a great way necessarily to clamp them together. I don't have like really long clamps, right? So the clamps that I have can only maybe clamp like 2 pieces together at a time. So after those 2 pieces, we have to figure out how to clamp a three pieces together, and then try to figure out how to clamp the whole thing together, glue that together. Maybe I could just like wedge it against the ceiling, maybe like just kind of like put some wood underneath it for the whole thing once it's all glued up, and then like maybe try to like wedge it against the floorboards in the basement. Maybe that'll provide hopefully enough force to work. I don't know. So yeah, I did that. I clamped them that way. Seemed okay. Went out to sand. Yeah, bro. It just popped right out. One of the ends. Don't know why, because I totally waited 24 hours for the glue to dry. I totally didn't wait like overnight at all for that. So I don't really know why that happened. Whatever. It's I'll just re-glue it, reclamp it, and it should be fine. So I did that. Again, wedged it against the ceiling, and it seemed good. Went to apply the finish, tung oil, and I don't know if any of you have used tung oil before, or something similar, but they have this fun warning here. May affect the brain or nervous system. Reports have associated repeated and prolonged exposure to solvents with permanent brain damage and nervous system damage. So that's not good, right? That's fine. Took it out into the garage, just applied it in the garage, but it's like 10 degrees here. I don't know if that really affects things or not. It doesn't say anywhere on here that it cures within a certain like temperature range, or that it's like to keep from freezing or anything like that, or not that I can see. So I figured it'd be fine. So after 24 hours or so, it was still like oily and waxy. Did a little bit of research on that, a little bit of Googling, and people were saying like all different types of things, like that it like doesn't cure if it's below freezing. Some people are saying that it does cure. Some people are saying that it takes a long time. Some people are saying that it like separates if it's below a certain temperature. I don't know. But now that it's been, 24 hours, I figured it'd probably be fine to just like bring it inside. So brought it inside, into the basement, and within like an hour, the whole basement smelled very strongly of tung oil. It's not good, but luckily, past me was smart and built this fume hood for my resin printers, and luckily it's long enough that I can put this whole thing into it and just seal that off. It vents to the outside. From what I've read, it seems to cure faster when it's warmer. So I put in a little space heater in there. I just let it sit overnight, and it seemed fine. I took it out. The smell was a lot less. It wasn't oily and waxy and stuff anymore. So figured that now that it's pretty much done, it'd be good to do a little small strength test on this. Just, in case I need to, I don't want it to like just snap when if I have to brace myself or something, right? So I put a little bit of weight, just kind of just a little bit, and yeah, just snapped in half. The dowel that was in there, it just snapped. So, admitting that I'm not a woodworker. I don't know wood things. I texted someone who does know a thing or two about woodworking, my dad, and he suggested a half lap joint, which seemed well. So my first thought with this is that it would probably just break like this way, like on the plane of the cut, right? But I could put a dowel in there that would provide some extra strength, because then it's more so like pulling the dowel than kind of wanting to snap it. So that might work. And I could alternate the cuts. So it would be cut in one direction and cut in the other direction to kind of distribute the forces throughout the length of it. So it's not just possibly weak in one plane and then strong in another plane. I would have to do this maybe 9 or 8 times or so if there's 9 pieces. I don't know if the tools that I have, because I'm eyeballing a lot of it. I don't know how well that's going to really work. Plus, it would take it from whatever the height it was, and if I cut in 2 inches right on each one, it would be 16 inches shorter, which is still probably fine. It would be head height. Or so, which, after doing a little bit of research now, it seems like that would be about average size, right? But why have an average sized staff when you can have a above average sized staff? Right. With that in mind, I asked my dad, hey, what can I do if I want to keep the length and still have it strong? He suggested these hanger bolts. So I got some of those. I got the essentially just the biggest ones that I could find, because I didn't want this breaking. So I in this time though, with these hanger bolts, because I'm actually screwing them in, right? I would want the holes to actually be centered and aligned and drilled properly. I got this little jig from Home Depot. It didn't really, it didn't work. It didn't work for this. So I 3D printed these things, these little doodads. One that has a smaller diameter hole for the actual bolt, and one that has a little bit bigger diameter hole for the threads. It's pretty thick on the top here, so it's a little cap that'll go on the end. I can just and it should be centered. Should be straight, should be centered. Yeah, it wasn't. It wasn't straight or centered. I don't know. I don't know why it wasn't. I'm thinking that because the holes were already off in the first place, and I, put in a lot of like wood glue and stuff in these holes, that by like drilling through, it just kind of like pulled out. It just kind of like pulled out the wood glue, making it like not really centered. Plus, these also kind of like really emphasized how like off the pieces were. So yeah. Anyways, I ignored that completely and decided to just continue doing this. And so I put in those. So because the holes are a little too big, right? Because of the wood glue and whatever. I had to figure out how to put these like threads and these bolts into these dowels without them just kind of pulling themselves out. And I don't know how well wood glue sticks to wood necessarily, but I do know something that does stick to wood and to metal, and that is Gorilla Glue. And it also expands, so that could fill in all of the voids that were there. Hopefully increasing the strength of it. I may have put in a little too much wood or Gorilla Glue. Well, as you can see here, it kind of foamed up like a lot, but that's fine. It's just foam. I can just like cut it off. It ended up being fine. I just kind of cut that off, and then I tried screwing them into place, and it just kind of pulled the threads out. And also one of the bolts just kind of like pulled out as well. I don't know why one of the bolts pulled out, but the other one didn't. Don't know what's up with that, but I decided, okay, maybe that doesn't work. But while I was waiting for that to dry, I was looking up how to make wood stronger in case this isn't as strong as I'm like hoping it would be. I don't want it to just like snap even on like the actual solid wood part. And people were saying to use or that like resin or epoxy works for making wood stronger. Don't know if that's true, but I do have epoxy resin. So I mixed up some epoxy, put that on the bolts, put that on the threads, let that sit, and tried screwing them together. But the issue with that is that I put in too much epoxy on the threads, or on the threaded portion that you would screw the bolt into. So the bolt kind of just bottomed out at the epoxy and then pulled the threads out from there. That's fine. That's fine. We can just we'll just like glue it. We'll just glue it straight, like the bolts straight in there with epoxy. Hopefully that'll work, right? So mixed up good amount of epoxy, and this time, instead of just wedging it against the ceiling to clamp it, I decided to use a car jack. So I grabbed the jack out of my car and pressed it against the ceiling, just crushed it against the ceiling. That seemed to work pretty well. You could apply a lot of force to it. I was careful not to apply too much force because, we can lift a car. So, yeah. Man, it was such a process to try to get this somewhat straight because it, like, by doing all of this, one of the ends on the middle red section or whatever ended up being kind of rounded off because I tried sanding it a little bit to like get off some of the like epoxy and stuff to make sure that it could that it was smooth and that it could stick and there wasn't like air gaps and everything. But by doing that, it rounded it at the top, making it not square anymore. So it liked to just kind of and buckle out if I put just a little too much force onto it. So in that case, I duct taped all of these metal rods to here. So this is from like one of those things that go over like a campfire. After 24 hours, I took that off. I decided to put a thin layer of epoxy on one of the sections, just kind of see like, oh, maybe I could do this, right? I'm just going to sum up this next 10 minutes or so. Point is, I poured resin on it to make it stronger, sanded it, it broke again, put more resin on it, gave me a chance to straighten it out, hence why it's clamped on the table and not pressed against the ceiling, wiped resin on it with a shop rag that left kind of a grainy texture, so I needed to sand it more, but I didn't want to keep hand sanding it because hand sanding is exhausting and dumb, and I needed a better way to sand it nice and evenly and well and all that fun stuff. So ideally I would want to be able to spin it as if it was on the lathe, but because it's like, 7 feet long or so, can't do that. So what's my solution? Good question. That's what we're getting to in this next bit. So here it is so far. It's pretty much done. It's kind of hard to see in the video, but there's some scratches there. It's kind of cloudy. I want to sand it more, but it's obviously way too big to fit on the lathe. I did take one of these 3D printed hole jig things and put it on the drill, so I could put this. I was thinking I could put this on like one end, but yeah. So after some thinking and some discussion, I figured my best option was to hang it off the ceiling if possible. So I modified one of the hole jigs that I made, put a cut into that, printed it out of TPU so it's a little flexible. I mounted that onto the drill, used a hose clamp to make sure that it was really clamped onto the end of the staff, and did this. Zip tied it to the rafters in the garage, and that seemed to work pretty well. Because it's spinning now, you can really see how curved it is when I was wet sanding it because I had the heater going. When I would get to the bottom of it, you can see here my hands would like start smoking from the steam. I thought that was pretty cool. So here it is, the final thing. I like how it turned out. Turned out pretty good. There are some sections like right down here where the resin cracked and I think like separated from the wood. And then there's a big line kind of going on the side here. But if I were to sit here and try to make this perfect, then I would never post a video. So if you have any ideas on how I could improve this, or if there's anything that I should do with this, let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one. I try not to hit a light.